AI distillation has suddenly become one of the most controversial topics in artificial intelligence. The White House has accused Chinese AI startup Moonshot AI of using AI distillation to build its latest model, Kimi K3, one of the most powerful OpenAI models released so far, by allegedly distilling Anthropic's Fable model. Okay, so what is wrong with that approach? Turns out it's not that black and white. And to answer that, we first need to understand how AI distillation works and why it's at the center of one of AI's biggest debates today. So what exactly is AI distillation? Put simply, instead of training an AI model from scratch using trillions of words collected from books, websites, and other sources, developers first interact with an already powerful AI model. They give it thousands or even millions of prompts, collect its responses, and use those responses as training data for a new model. It's not to create an exact copy, but to build a smaller, faster, and cheaper model that can reproduce much of the larger model's capabilities. And this isn't some experimental technique. It's already become a standard part of modern AI development. OpenAI itself offers model distillation as an official feature on its developer platform. Developers can use models like GPT-4o to generate high-quality outputs and then fine-tune smaller models for specific tasks, reducing cost and latency, while preserving much of the original model's performance. Google is building similar capabilities through its Gemini distillation service, allowing developers to train efficient student models from larger Gemini models for enterprise use cases. So distillation itself isn't unusual. In fact, it's becoming a standard part of how modern AI systems are built. So if OpenAI, Google, and researchers have been publishing distilled models for years, why is the White House accusing Chinese startup Moonshot AI over the exact same technique? And that's where the story becomes a tad bit more complicated. Because the debate is no longer just about distillation, it's about whose model you're distilling, how you obtain those outputs, and whether crossing that line amounts to innovation or theft. Last week, the White House alleged that the Chinese startup had used AI distillation to build Kimi K3 by learning from Anthropic's latest frontier model, Fable. Anthropic has also claimed that it detected suspicious activity involving accounts that appeared to be extracting unusually large volumes of data from its API. According to the company, those accounts were later linked to Moonshot AI. If the allegations are true, the issue isn't that Moonshot used distillation. It's that it may have used another company's frontier model in a way that violated the provider's terms of services and, according to Anthropic, attempted to bypass the safeguards put in place to prevent exactly this kind of large-scale extraction. And that's when the topic crossed to intellectual property, contractual agreements, and the rules that govern access to some of the world's most powerful AI models. But here's the question I kept coming back to. If I pay for access to an AI model, ask it millions of questions, study every response, and then use those learnings to build my own AI, have I actually stolen anything? It sounds like a simple question, but it's actually several different questions. And that's because the word stealing is being used to describe very different things. The first is contract. AI companies like Anthropic and OpenAI have terms of service that govern how developers can use their models. If those terms explicitly prohibit using model outputs to train another AI, and someone does exactly that, the first question is whether they violated the agreement they accepted. But that's very different from copyright. Copyright protects original creative expression. So the legal question isn't simply whether someone used an AI's answers, it's whether what they copied, if anything, is actually protected by copyright. Now that's a far more complicated question and one courts are only beginning to grapple with. Then there's a third issue, trade secrets and unauthorized access. If someone simply uses an API within the permitted limits, that's one scenario. But if they allegedly create fake accounts, bypass safeguards, or evade usage restrictions to extract massive amounts of data, that's a completely different allegation. So obviously when headlines say Moonshot stole Anthropic's AI, they're often compressing several very different legal questions into a single word, stealing. And that's where another interesting nuance emerges. Earlier in the controversy, Anthropic's public statements focused on what it described as suspicious API activity, alleging that accounts linked to Moonshot were attempting to extract unusually large volumes of model outputs, potentially in violation of its usage policies. But when the White House weighed in, the language became much broader. Officials described it as stealing proprietary US technology through large-scale AI distillation. Although those two statements point to the same controversy, but they're not necessarily making the same legal argument. And that's why this debate has become so difficult to untangle. Now, it's also interesting to look at what the tech community thinks. Some AI researchers have questioned whether distillation alone can even explain Kimi K3's capabilities. They point out that Kimi K3 was released very shortly after Anthropic's Fable became available. And based on the public timeline, some argue there simply may not have been enough time for large-scale distillation alone to produce a model of that quality. Now, that doesn't mean the allegations are false. It simply means that if distillation did occur, it may have been just one part of a much larger development process involving prior research, additional training data, reinforcement learning, or other techniques. Others have also argued that as frontier AI models become increasingly capable, distillation alone may contribute less than many people assume. So in other words, even the technical community hasn't reached a consensus on what exactly happened. But regardless of how this controversy eventually plays out, one thing is already becoming clear. This dispute between Anthropic and Moonshot AI is becoming part of a much larger technology war between the United States and China. Following these allegations, senior officials in the Trump administration have warned that Chinese AI companies could face sanctions and be placed on the US entity list if they're found to have engaged in large-scale AI distillation of American frontier models. On the surface, the objective seems straightforward: to protect US innovation and prevent cutting-edge AI technology from benefiting strategic competitors. But history tells us that technology restrictions often have unintended consequences. Instead of slowing China down, they can push Chinese companies to invest even more aggressively in building their own domestic AI ecosystem. In fact, some researchers argue that restricting access to frontier US models could accelerate the development and adoption of China's own open-weight AI models, creating an alternative AI ecosystem that is less dependent on American technology. If that sounds familiar, it's because I spoke about something similar in my earlier episode on why China is giving away its most powerful AI models. As access to Western AI becomes more restricted, open-weight Chinese models don't just become an engineering choice, they become a strategic one. So perhaps the bigger question isn't whether Moonshot distilled Anthropic's model. The bigger question is in fact whether this controversy pushes the AI industry further towards two parallel ecosystems, one led by the United States, the other by China. But what do you think? Is AI distillation a legitimate way to build better models, or does it cross the line into intellectual property theft? Or is the answer somewhere in between? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Tech Brew with Vandana Nair. I'll see you in the next one.